And Mark Hinnells, who's joined us, is somebody with several hats. He has a background in energy research. He's also managed projects with the Energy Saving Trust and Carbon Trust, which you may well mention in passing. And more recently, he's also left academia, I think apart from 1 day a week at the moment, and has been involved in two kind of entrepreneurial ventures, if you like, with direct experience. Which again, I'll let him tell you a little bit more about. So I'll pass you over to Mark.
Yeah, I was just joking that I've done the academic bit, I've done the policy bit, and now I'm doing the entrepreneurial bit, and therefore I must be onto my third age. And there we are. The contents about today, I wanted to give you a bit of context about, as Richard said, I'm 1 day a week at the Environmental Change Institute, where my research there is around new business models to deliver a low carbon future. And I wanted to give you a bit of background as to how I've ended up there and what drives the research, what approach I'm taking in that research. And the context for this is the scale of transformation in delivering low carbon that is needed and is possible. And then I've got a number of case studies. Case studies always been my kind of research method of choice, if you like, illustrations of change that I can talk about. Some of that is very direct experience that I've been involved in, and some of it's observational. And then obviously there are some important conclusions out of that for either for next steps in terms of research or where we go in terms of policy. The background for the research is that I've spent 2 periods since 1994 at the Environmental Change Institute at the University of Oxford. And the theme there has been around market transformation, and I'll talk a little bit more about market transformation in a minute. But essentially it is taking markets where energy or carbon is not a discriminating factor in choices between products or services, to a situation where it's very much a way of discriminating between products and services and eliminating the worst providers. I'm now part of the Future of Cities programme at ECI in the Side Business School, 1 day a week. So that's part of the background. That's partly where I've come from. The other angle on my work now is I've set up a business together with some colleagues called Susenco, which is short for the Sustainable Energy Company. And Susenco does a mix of consultancy work and development work. So we're working, if you like, at the coalface with the larger landed estates, with large corporations like TNT and Hanson, helping them to deliver sustainability. And I'll talk about how we do that afterwards. Some of that is helping them to deliver it within their company. Some of it is them outsourcing it into our company. So we develop, own and operate a portfolio of renewables, in particular wind at the present time. But anaerobic digestion is something that's very much on our radar screen, and we've got quite in the organisation we've got quite a lot of experience with combined heat and power and the technologies that are necessary for AD. And then perhaps beyond that, large-scale PV installations, but we can come to those later. The research that I'm undertaking has, if you like, a flavour of participant observation. I am at the coalface working with those organisations 4 days a week, and then 1 day a week I'm lucky enough to go and put a cold towel on my head and seek shelter in the Environmental Change Institute and think about what it is I've been observing for the previous 4 days a week, both with customers and suppliers and so on in the melee of the marketplace. And so I've just put a brief definition of participant observation and what it is I'm looking for in a case study, and you've got those on your slide, so I won't necessarily go into details. But what is one key issue is what is the case that I'm examining here? And actually the case is very wide. The case is the marketplace and the interaction between players in that marketplace. So that's an important point, because each of these cases are very different marketplaces. The perspectives that I'm using in there are very much a grounded theory approach, good old Glaser and Strauss and so on, which I've been using since I was, Steve was my surrogate supervisor in the early 90s. and the perspectives around science and technology studies, looking at innovation theory and how innovation comes about, because they all have something to say about innovation, but importantly, low carbon innovation and how the world might change. One of the interesting perspectives, and apologies these labels haven't come out, this says government, this says providers, and this says consumers. But one of the interesting issues is that industry takes the view that they respond to their marketplaces, to their consumers, what their consumers want. I don't really see the world like that. And having had a view of market transformation and innovation theory, and I did a book chapter with Brenda Boardman a couple of years ago, which outlines the market transformation approach and how governments can frame and change markets, and the interaction between providers and consumers. I think it's a very, very interesting discourse as to where change comes from, who drives it. And a lot of my time I've been, if you like, located in the government area, framing markets through that market transformation approach. And in a sense, what I'm now doing is jumping out of that camp into this provider approach and looking at the role of the entrepreneur, the role of the innovator in influencing change. So there's a huge lot of research in the different perspectives about where change comes from in particular markets and so on, which I think is, when we're talking about the research agenda next, is worth exploring.